So from that, let's move on to the first panel discussion of the day, which is on the topic of youth for change towards tech-driven economic growth. Our speakers earlier had touched upon how technology is, intervening in real estate and how a younger generation is bringing it, the acceleration due to COVID. So let me now introduce this panel, and the session will be chaired by Dr. Adil Malia, CEO and managing partner of the firm. Dr. Adil Malia has been a thought leader in the different dimensions of corporate transformation, people, and leadership space for more than 4 decades now. He leads the leadership people management and learning practice and has worked with diverse companies like Godrej, GE, Alphatem, Coca-Cola, and SR in India and overseas. I welcome our expert moderator, and let me now introduce our eminent speakers in an alphabetical order. Let me welcome Mr. Arihant Parakh, Director, Orbit Group. Arihant is the new generation at Orbit and has a flair for new products and concepts. He started at a young age and has spent more than a decade with the group, looking into restructuring and project planning, and trusted with the responsibility of marketing and dealing with customers. Our next eminent panel member, let me introduce Avinash Suresh, COO at Arvind SmartSpaces Limited. Avinash has 17 years of cumulative multidisciplinary experience in law, strategy, general management, and operations. In his current role, he is responsible for the entire operations of the company, from spearheading growth to strategizing the company's entry into newer markets and segments and ensuring successful execution of projects. Our next expert speaker is John K. Kuruvilla, Chief Mentor, Brigade REAP. John comes with over 3 decades of diverse experience covering marketing, sales, brand building, etc., and has been a serial entrepreneur and an active mentor and investor in disruptive startups. John helped conceptualize and set up GenNext Hub, the Reliance Industries Accelerator Program, Brigade REAP, Asia's first PropTech Accelerator Program, and was also an advisor to Cisco's Launchpad Accelerator Program. Our next eminent panel member is Mr. Parth Mehta, founder and MD Paradigm Realty. Parth Mehta has over 12 years of rich real estate background. He started his venture in the year 2015 and has enabled the brand to carve out a niche for itself as one of the successfully growing mid-sized firm in Mumbai real estate. Our next and final member, let me introduce Sujay Kalele, founder and MD to Realty Private Limited. Sujay founded the company to solve the core problems of real estate sector, which is the lack of transparency and accountability. Two Realty leverages IT and tech-enabled products to deliver superior products to the end customers by fostering healthy competition through stakeholder aggregations. So this is our eminent panel for this topic, and let me now hand it over to our moderator of this session, Mr. Adil Malia. Dr. Malia, all yours.
So thank you very much, Sapna, and welcome Arihant, Avinash, John, Parth, Sujay to this panel. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to you all also for this webinar by Realty Plus, 40 under 40 Conclave. This panel, which is the first panel which is getting into a kind of a group discussion, is about discussing the theme on youth for change towards a tech-driven economic growth. Now, the next hour that we are going to invest in this discussion is going to be very, very interesting for all of us. And let me give you 3 reasons why I believe it's going to be very interesting. One is we are experiencing a different world. Underline the word experiencing. Second is this world is getting redefined by disruptive technology. Redefinition and disruptive technology, please underline. And at an unmatchable pace, underline unmatchable. So if you were to look at all the 3 things or the 3 factors or the factors that we have underlined, we are saying it's a world of experience, which is going to be a different world of experience. And that world is getting redefined not by the normal growth of technology, but by disruptive technology, which is changing at an unmatchable pace. That's the first kind of thought I want to share with you. Unmatchable pace. We were seeing changes happening, not that the change is being experienced in the world for the first time, but the kind of pace at which these changes are happening, an unmatchable pace, which we have never experienced in the past. The second to that is a logical movement, and that is to say that smart and sharp players from within the trade who have learned the ability to capitalize on their ability to convert these new technologies into customer experiences leads to better and sharper business focus and better results. So those amidst us, because as the technology outdates our knowledge, outdates our experiences of the past, there are two things which are happening. One is, of course, the most obvious is obsolescence. And followed by obsolescence are two things. Either the response of the people is rigid or it is agile. Those with rigid experiences tend to tumble by the wayside, and those with agility are able to convert these technological disruptive experiences into experiences for their customers, which will then enhance the business results and business focus. And the third, why this hour is going to be interesting, is that we are going to put the 5 of these under 40 gladiators that we have got on this panel by asking them all the questions we want to know on the basis of their technical experiences of how they have converted their knowledge into customer experiences, therefore better results, therefore better progress, therefore better probability for success. And the idea of putting these gladiators to be tested by my questioning and your questioning is not to test their knowledge and experiences as much as to learn from what they believe have been the causes of their success, and how are we going to take it back from what we can learn from them. So I'm going to ask, before I begin, one common question, and that is that there are sufficient number of experiences which are classically what we would call them the Mohenjo-daro enterprises, which are living still in today's times in old practices, old way of doing things. And the world that we are going to be seeing is the world of metaverse, which is the next stage of internet that the world is talking about. So what is really going to be the key driver of how these Mohenjo-daro organizations are going to transit into the metaverse world? And let me begin by asking each one of you to comment for 2 or 3 minutes at best on this basic thought. How are they going to convert themselves? What should they be doing ideally? So Arihant, why wouldn't you begin with that for around 2 to 3 minutes on this subject?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to being one of the panelists on this discussion. First of all, I think, like you very rightly mentioned, is first, the biggest change that needs to come in is a change in the perception. We need to first decide on the fact that we need to move out of the traditional way of doing businesses and be willing to adapt to the changing scenarios. Though, because real estate is kind of an industry where there are multi-generations working together, and the line of thought spans across various age groups as well, is the first thing is that an overall organizational perception change needs to happen to decide and agree on the fact that we need to change and adapt to the changing environment. Although with the entire burst of thought into the metaverse and the blockchain, I feel in India we are still at a very nascent stage, but it's right now is the right time to take a call and decide on the fact that this paradigm shift is happening and is about to happen. And slowly and steadily, we need to move towards it. Although I myself am not too familiar with how this change will happen, I am studying it myself about how the change is happening and how we need to adapt onto it. But the sooner the blockchain concept as well as the metaverse concept is accepted, we need to move towards it by taking baby steps right now towards where we are starting from virtual reality to augmented reality to AI and everything in every aspect, be it the sales aspect as well as the construction. But it should take in time, but it needs a lot of effort and a lot of thought that needs to go into it. But it will happen, but the slow and steady space time needs to be put into it.
Sure. So what I hear you saying is that, yes, it's going to happen at some point and we will have to modify, but we don't know what the real shape is going to look like.
Exactly.
Let's begin with the baby steps of trying to mentally prepare ourselves that we are going to move in that direction. Let's not get too rigidly caught up in the paradigm, and therefore let's move on to it. Avinash, what are your thoughts on this?
Thanks, Dr. Adil. It's a pleasure being on the panel. I think at the outset, I must say that the real estate sector has generally been slow to adopt technology, whether it's on the customer side or on the construction side. Right? If you look at our practices, their practices have been largely consistent for the last several decades. And I think like with most other inventions or change, it's necessity that has actually forced us into adoption of technology. So I think one of the examples that is very, very clear and stark right now is, COVID really forced the real estate sector to adopt digital sales technology, right? So while digital sales were a very small part of real estate sales even prior to COVID, I think it accounted for most developers to say 5 to 7% of their sales. And the reason was that, we were always under the perception that a customer will not buy an apartment unless he comes to physically see it, touch it, feel it, right? The buying does not happen. COVID changed that in a lot of ways. It became a survival, a matter of survival. So a lot of companies invested in digital sales technologies. And today you're seeing the result. Today, on almost across the board, digital sales account for over 35 to 40% of sales of most developers, right? And customers have adopted faster than we thought was possible. So I think this change is happening. It is very, very real. We are seeing it on the sales side. We are seeing it on the construction side as well. So for example, for a long time, I think BIM was probably one of the highest levels of technology that we used on the construction side and the design side, right? Today, we are actually using augmented reality and 3D to understand what designs will look like, how services will run in our buildings, etc. So this is going to happen. And I think developers who adopt it faster are going to be the ones that actually survive in the long term. It's going to be, a strategic advantage to them. And I think we are going to see larger brands and, progressive developers adopt these technologies sooner rather than later.
So, Avinash, what I hear you saying is two realities hitting. Number one is that life is futile. COVID has taught us that, one doesn't know. You could be a chairman or a watchman. Life could be as, fragile for everybody. And therefore, the question people from an insight perspective are asking is, do I need to make those heavy investments and buying properties when it could be just any moment I could be hit by any contagion and I don't know what's going to happen? And on the other hand is that because of that reality, also the need for me to be operating from different spaces, particularly well-defined spaces within my own house and my own home. And therefore, I need some space, not necessarily owned by me, but which provides me all the three things: my space, our space, and community space, so that I can operate effectively from everywhere else. Very well, sir. Thank you very much. What about you, John? You have been the chief mentor to the group. You have been the chief mentor of the Brigade group. So tell us, what are your experiences in this space? How is it going to happen?
Dr. Malia, Realty, thank you so much for having me. I bring in a very, very interesting perspective. While some of you may know that Brigade REAP is Asia's first PropTech accelerator program, and we have helped catalyze the adoption of technology by real estate companies in India, something that's not in the public domain is the fact that we also run the innovation program for Aldar, which is the largest real estate group in the Middle East, and Majid Al Futtaim this year. Mm-hmm. I'm going to bring in two perspectives. The first perspective is that, you talked of traditional ways of running business. I think the earlier generation, and I'm glad to see a younger generation here, but the earlier generation, many of them built extremely strong foundations, fundamentally strong in building processes, in construction, and in building credibility and a brand. But what lacked is the fact that the industry was extremely inefficient, project delays, cost overruns. And you'd be surprised to know that worldwide, there's a McKinsey report which says that the labor productivity in the construction sector is the poorest across all verticals.
Yes, okay? I read that report. You're right.
Now, in 2016, when we started Brigade REAP, the adoption of the investment by real estate companies in India was less than 0.9%. Whereas the industry average, whether it was media, whether it was healthcare, whether it was education, finance, was about 3.3%. Today, in 6 years, that has gone to about 1.5%. And the sole reason for that is the fact that the younger generation who've educated overseas, who are well-versed with technology, have come in and realized that the next real estate 2.0 has to be building process efficiencies.
True.
So we're seeing, let me give you the perspective of the Middle East. The last cohort that we ran for Aldar and Majid Al Futtaim focused on Web 3.0. NFTs, cryptos, blockchain, fractional, metaverse. And we had 509 companies from across the world applying, and we mentored 10 companies. And you would be shocked to know that the entire leadership team of Aldar and a very large leadership team from Majid Al Futtaim devoted 60 hours of their time working with us to identify disruptive startups. And what are the kind of startups we looked at? Startups solving digital twin, startups in the metaverse, startups solving fractional ownership, not in living and working, but in retail. Now in India, the work that we're doing with some of the leading developers and also the small real estate developers is on basics. Can we improve process efficiencies? Can we bring in alternate construction materials? Can we bring in AR, VR? So one of the first companies that we mentored, which got acquired by Square Yards, was Prop VR. And we're also a little conscious of the fact that many of these new wine in old bottles, which is metaverse and all, could be fads. So our belief is that go into the ground, work with the startups, work with the real estate fraternity, take the experience from the Middle East, work with developers who are opening up their technology access. Many of them have CIOs, many of them have CTOs, many of them have innovation officers, which is a phenomenal progress for our industry. And I think that a lot of them are going to adopt technology far rapidly.
But John, everything that we are experiencing in today's time, if you looked at it from the minus 20 years perspective, would have looked like a fad, which if people did not invest in, they would have been lost out today. So this is the nature of the kind of changes. It may look like a fad. It may look like it may fail. It may look like you got to invest or not to invest is a question at a given point of time. The wise invest. And of course, sometimes your investments fail, and the very conservative stop investing because they believe it's a fad. And then by the time they really get into investing, it's too late and the world has moved on. They miss out on the critical investment time and then have to pay much higher. So that's also a reality we got to be mindful of.
But I'll just add one interesting point to you. See, a fad is when technology does not deliver a tangible outcome. Okay, and that's
today's perspective.
From today's perspective, absolutely, it's time and space, sequential. So we are talking about working with VR companies, working with blockchain companies, saying, give us a fundamental benefit to the real estate industry. Either save money or help me reduce costs of customer acquisition, or improve customer efficiency, or help me make more money. Yeah. So that's the difference we have between.
Either it gives a different experience to my customer or it brings in an efficiency. One of the two has to happen.
That's the difference between fad and reality.
Good. Parth, your experiences on the same thing. How will organizations, which are legacy organizations, move into the new world? For easier definition, we call it the world of metaverse. But how will they move into that? Parth, what are your experiences and thoughts?
So, first of all, good afternoon to all my panelists. And hi, Dr. Adil. And thank you, Realty Plus, for having us over for the seminar. So I would like to reserve my comments into two parts. One is on the developer side, and second on the consumer side. What are the distinction? Now, pre-COVID and post-COVID, there's been a world of difference in the way we perform our business, the way we act, the way we perform, the way we conduct the overall operations of the business, where COVID has been a blessing in disguise for the entire PropTech industry that has popped up. Pre-COVID, the earlier avatar of doing business was far too different than what we are doing now. I've realized one thing as a developer, what we've felt the conventional way of doing business, whereby we were doing outdoor hoardings, print media, paper ads, lot of exhibitions, seminars, project launches in a big random broker meets. All those costs have far reduced for us by looking at adopting PropTech as a platform, where today we are spending more on better website, better digital spend, more focused SEO activities, social media activities, lead generation activities, Zoom meetings and video chats, Microsoft meetings have taken up most of our time, travel time, which we were spending meeting across people for quick meetings. So the efficiency has really increased on the developer side. Today, where our construction is concerned, we are all adopting innovation construction model where BIM is used, architectural softwares are used, that the margin of error, which we were facing in conventional way of doing businesses is now completely eliminated, because we all run the unlimited risk of RERA, the legality system of this country, that even after delivering, we are always cognizant of what can go wrong. So if you're incorporating all the moving parts day one, you've got better safety net to make lesser mistake. Today's CRM solutions and ERP systems that we are adopting as developers has really increased the efficiency, which was not there in the previous bit. So this was the thought which I had for the developer side. Now, where consumers are concerned, what we have to understand is post-COVID, the attention span of consumers has really reduced. They are more flirtatious in their nature, going and doing meetings, visiting.
Hello. I think
they're super focused with their limited tolerance. Yeah. So in this, I feel the way now the business is being conducted and the way things are happening because of PropTech, the way customers are visualizing through 3D home apartment tours, videos, smart home automation. So the people are today used to that. Their reminders are set. The payment of bills they know when they are supposed to pay. So the delivery or the dependency on technology has gone to such a high extent, which was never there previously in whatever way we all used to live our normal life. So I feel these are the two perspectives that I had from both the fronts.
Sure. And talking about RERA, which you mentioned, talking about RERA in a builders forum is like waving a red cape in a kind of a bull match that you have. And the moment you say RERA, most of the builders want to shut off and say, are my signals running okay? In every webinar, I have seen that happening. But the question still is that it's about regulation and freedom within framework, at least in the transitory state, so that you ensure that things move the way they ought to, because unregulated markets, unregulated behaviors will stop and come in the way of progress. Is my understanding correct, Sujay? As you say, before you respond to that question, Sujay?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Realty Plus, for having me on the panel. I think, Dr. Adil, regulations, if we see the trajectory of regulations over the last 10 years, it is only getting stricter, and it is fair to expect that only two things in India are going to get stricter. One is regulations on real estate and other is environmental laws. So that has been a trajectory. Having said that, I think technology, and while I have been listening to my fellow panelists, what we have seen on the PropTech space is, just maybe version 1.0 of the tech disruption. We have seen only specific points getting disrupted. If, for example, in the last 5 years, it was only property discovery that got disrupted. So by the likes of Square Yards and so many other startups really. And not only at that level, you have so many other like nobroker.com or Anarok or so many other property consultants who also wanted to go the digital space. Then there was property visualization. What we spoke about, AR, VR, metaverse, is all about only property visualization, helping customers visualize what developer is going to build in a better and better manner, right? So what I'm trying to say is only specific points in the value chain have been tried to disrupt. The entire value chain, right from land acquisition to delivery, including the entire execution cycle, which includes construction, sales, marketing, post-sales, pre-sales, is something that none of the startups or even, what are in the horizon are looking at. And while it's very good to say about efficiencies and all of that. For example, a broker, conventionally, like Parth rightly said, conventional setup broker used to take 2%, 2.5%, whatever, 2 to 3%. With the, advent of Square Yards and everything, what is it that we have added to the efficiency, right? We have still not attacked the 98% of the value chain. We are focusing on, some of the startups are focusing on the only 2% of the entire value chain. So many things remain to be seen. One of the biggest challenges, while it's very easy, to focus on the larger thing, being a CEO of a large listed real estate developer myself for 6 years, and then on the PropTech development space, having started True Realty in the last 4 years, I can say that one of the biggest challenges is to mold culture of an organization. See, you cannot just have one fine day, you might be a 10,000 people company or a developer or $1 billion enterprise, just enforce new, tech way of doing things. Culture, people management, people mapping skills is very, very different. I mean, I have seen great, in my own personal experience, I've seen one of the best tech initiatives getting failed just because people were not ready to change. So how do we map people, process, system to projects and customers will ultimately determine whether whatever we are wanting to really extract out of the new way of doing development through PropTech, we are able to be successful or not so successful.
Right. Good. But Arihant, let me take from what Sujay was talking about, that as of now, the perception is that with all the new technologies which have come in, there at the customer end, it has helped the customer visualize the property better. Versus we have all been talking about, not only from the realty space, but because I do consulting in the much wider open arena outside of the real estate as well, there is a certain change that is happening in the world, that it is changing the customer experience, not only at the visualizing end, but at the hands-on experience end. So in the sense that, the technology, the 3D technologies and all which are going to become big time in the metaverse, you could have the avatar of your customer with an algorithmic background, having actually the experience of staying one night on the 101st floor of your building and experiencing what that whole day would look like when his digital avatar is staying in the 101st floor, which is booking in your building. So it's not only visualization, but it's a live experience of what life would be on that 101 floor, which he's investing in your apartment. So isn't that the more critical thing than only a visualization from a videographic point of view?
Just to take precedence from what you said is, first of all, to give that experience in the current scenario, whenever we are trying to or planning to invest into a PropTech or kind of adopt to a PropTech, the biggest challenge that we all face at the onset is the cost that it brings into, right? When we do that cost benefit analysis of implementing a newer technology, is where we kind of need to convince our seniors and our senior generation of the fact that the cost benefit analysis that it does, like what Sujay said, is most of it is kind of saving on the 2% and not looking into the other 98%. So even on the matter of fact, we have to look at a completely overall scenario, in the sense that what is the benefit that it gets to the project and what is the eventual outcome or effect that it has on our profitability and viability. In the precedence of rather than going on a metaverse avatar is there, I recently experienced a new technologies when now people are kind of inculcating holographic visual tours when it comes to their model flats or marketing offices, rather than having these extravagant model flats and these big spaces. Is now people are adopting into holographic study tours, or rather experiential tours into their projects. I feel that would be a much more cost-effective implementation at the onset, where compared to having a metaverse or a digital algorithm-based avatar where the person kind of experiences your apartment for a day. I think the most important way, or the first initial step that we can take, is moving towards holographic visual tours, where which is kind of correlated to the augmented reality space as well, where the person can spend a few hours in that room, understand how his entire day will move towards by shifting into that project, be it spending time at the club, spending time in his apartment per se, and spending time overall in the entire bigger complex itself as well. I think that's the first step we should take towards as a bigger disruption, apart from just the sales aspect of it, is also to see the overall experience of the customer is towards moving towards holographic visual tools as well.
And you're so right, Arihant, because that's going to create a different experience and a different reality compared to giving a very glossy brochure to someone.
Exactly.
And he will be having a sea view, and then the only view he gets is that of some stagnant cesspool which he gets from his apartment, to really living through the reality. So that kind of marketing will be gone, and the real marketing will come in. So,
sorry, sir. I would just also want to add on is that the post-COVID, another biggest transformation that has happened is people are not looking for those hardbound and big extravagant brochures to take back to.
Absolutely.
They are now all looking for virtual tools, virtual products, where they actually understand and get the proper detailed perspective of what they will get rather than just a rosy picture.
Correct. So, Avinash, the question for you is, are you then looking at building your organizational teams of people who are backing you up in the sales and marketing with a totally different set of skill sets, or are you still looking at wanting to train them in the new skill sets? You believe that all that is passé?
No. So I think it is very critical, Dr. Adil, that we are now, part of our sales and marketing team. So let me take that as an example, right, since you mentioned it. We are looking at a completely different skill set within the sales and marketing team. So, for example, a tech team within our sales and marketing team is something that didn't exist even 2 years ago, right? Today, we have a complete team that is working only around technology and sales technology today within the sales team. And I can tell you that some of the things that they do, right, we may not pay off in the short term, but we have long-lasting implications in terms of learnings for us. So, to give you an example, so last year we ran a pilot on a completely AR/VR driven sales platform, right? So a lot of people have done different components of this. A lot of people have done the AR/VR sample flats and your walkthroughs, etc. So we said, why not take it and stretch it a level further? Let's say we said that we want a customer to be able to sit on his couch and book an apartment end to end and give him an experience as close to reality as possible, right? So real estate is a very, very long purchase cycle. And, the idea is to really show a customer as much of reality as possible. So in addition to, just building the AR/VR, we then integrated a lot of real views into it as well. So one of the things we did is we said that any customer goes in, he can, when he chooses a flat, when he chooses a floor, he should be able to visualize what he sees outside, right? And when the thought struck me when you mentioned the sea view, right? So we are charging customers so much of, PLCs for the higher you go, the better, the more the PLC is. But in all fairness, a customer cannot visualize that today. So today, what we have done, we have integrated actual views into the AR/VR. So customer chooses a flat on the 15th floor or the 20th floor. He can actually look out and say, I've chosen a flat 15th floor on the north quadrant of the building, this is exactly what I will see. And then make a decision on whether to purchase or not.
Yeah, because similarly, for all you know, the 15th floor could only give him the view of the slum area right below in a city like Bombay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the idea is to, technology should help us improve transparency in the home buying process. It needs to give more power to the customer. Because honestly, the buying process is a little opaque. And like I said, it's a long purchase cycle. So the customer at the time of buying does not really know what he's going to get, at the time of occupancy. So using technology to actually give him a more realistic experience is critical. And therefore, the skill sets required to do that are going to be very different from the traditional sales skill sets that we have within the organization.
And where are you going to find that talent from?
So I think, again, we cannot look for this talent within the traditional real estate space. So we have also started now looking beyond the real estate space to acquire the kind of talent that we are looking for. And the other challenge that we are facing is today, because these are new, verticals that we are setting up. So if you go to talent and tell them I want you to join a real estate company in the sales team and set up this technology, it's possibly not the best career move for somebody of his caliber. So a lot of times then we are now looking at giving this, looking into like the gig economy in a sense, and giving a lot of these things down as projects to people and saying that, this is exactly what we want. Please go ahead and deliver this for us. And
making that into a value proposition for them to join.
Absolutely. That's a much better value proposition for them as, as people with these kind of skill sets.
Right. Right. So, John, you have been running this incubator program. And so how does the incubator program as a concept work? And tell us some interesting experience or an episode which will make us understand how the organizations will prepare for future. You are on mute.
I'm going to intertwine discussions by Sujay and by Avinash. Sujay rightfully said that builders are today looking at the visible and the invisible effect of technology. The most visible is sales. The most visible is customer experience. And there are enough companies who are doing that. And the real estate developers are extremely delighted with the reduction in costs that are being brought in marketing, customer acquisition, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Sujay, there are we've broken, and since we've been at it for 6 years now, we've broken down prop tech technologies into design stage, into construction stage, into operational marketing and handover. And I must tell you that today we have at least 10 startups in each of these verticals adding value in saving time, reducing cost, or improving margins. Let me give you a case in point of a company called QuickSpec that we mentored. The biggest challenge when a real estate developer has built his building, by the time he hands over to the customer, there is a lot of snagging, de-snagging work that is happening. Earlier, it used to happen through the Pavati. Today, the challenge that people like you have is most of your projects are on areas which don't have Wi-Fi connectivity, or from the 20th floor, you don't have internet connectivity. And QuickSpec came in with a mobile application which empowered the site engineer or the worker to actually upload visual, annotated delays, snags to the cloud. And this has brought down the handover process from 4 months to almost 1.5 months in several of the projects that we looked at. It also brought down snagging costs by 40%. For example, in a large project of a large developer, I'm not going to name the developer in Mumbai, they didn't know that one of their largest snags was the tower bolt. And in one tower, they realized that this tower bolt replacement was actually costing time and money. So when QuickSpec found this, in the next 11, they actually changed the vendor and they reduced time. Another company that we have is a company called SnapTrude. And Avinash, you talked about how real estate has long gestation cycles. From the time land is acquired till the time the design is finalized and BOQs are done, it can take anywhere between 6 months to 18 months, depending on the largeness of the company, of the project. We have a company called SnapTrude, which from a hand drawing, just your hand drawing, you've got 10 acres in Mumbai, in Powai, from a hand drawing, he will give you elevations, he will give you parabolic curve of the sun, he will give you ESG numbers, he will give you BOQs. What he is doing is disrupting AutoCAD. And so many of the real estate developers didn't use him. Brigade was the first to identify this. Many of the architects said, wow. And when Axel put money into him, they said, boss, in India, we have one problem, which is labor cost is very cheap. Last year, they flipped in the US. He's just raised millions of dollars because all architects are using them. I don't know if any of you are from the north of India. In October, November, December, breathing becomes almost impossible because farmers are burning agri-waste on the fields. We have a bright youngster who came from New York who's converting agri-waste. Why are farmers burning agri-waste? Because they don't have the money to take it and put it elsewhere. So she's gone and told them, listen, I will pay you 8 rupees a kilo of your agri-waste. And she's actually created agri-bio panels, which are far superior to plywood, gypsum, and particle boards. So we have hundreds of examples. And the good thing is smaller companies are faster to move. I mean, large companies are like Titanics. And I've seen large companies do this. But, I think, Sujay, you alluded to this. To get your people, your existing people to do this is going to be a challenge because moving a Titanic, you need old hands and there's a conflict between old and new. So the younger companies, and I'll give you names, Co-Evolve or Urbana, they are saving almost 12% on construction by using our startups. A Co-Evolve is getting 7.5% premium on his projects, fighting with the big giants in Amrutali in Bangalore because this projects are the most ESG compliant. And you know, while COVID was a great wake-up call for the industry, great boon for PropTech, 48% of our startups raised money during COVID. The next big challenge for the industry is ESG. And this is not just India. Middle East, we are seeing this. I'm in Africa next week. Africa is seeing this. And India, many developers are actually reaching out to us saying, hey guys, can you just bring startups who can help us do this? I hope I've answered.
Yeah, you have. In fact, what you're saying is, number one is you don't need those elephants out there. Elephants don't really have and reflect agility. But the most important thing is if you have the elephants, how do you make the elephants dance? How do you teach them to dance to the foxtrot tones that are being played out? That's very, very important. Now, the question for you, Parth, is that if you were to identify one disruptive PropTech idea that will really bring about the maximum impact, which would you put your finger on and say is that particular intervention or PropTech idea that will make the change? Hello? I think we lost him.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So, Dr. Adil, as a real estate developer, what I've understood is the most important factor that is the barometer of our decision making is our consumer behavior, because the kind of preferences that are changed by consumer are so fast in today's time that if we make a wrong product or conceive a wrong product, we are immediately going to be shattered either with unsold inventory or extra interest burden cost, or living with a project which is going to be very difficult to complete, which may derail an organization. One bad project derails an organization by about 10 years minimum. We've seen it in the past. Yes. So I feel the solutions today that are available that helps us to study the market in a manner where what are the budget preferences in a location, what are the demand supply dynamics in a location, preferences that a buyer has there, what are the availability options with under construction, ready to move in near completion projects in a vicinity. That helps us, according to me, in today's time, especially in the times where we've seen almost a turbulent time from 2011 to 2020. So we are a 7-year-old young organization. So we've only seen roller coaster rides year after year, right from NBFC crisis to GST, DeMon, RERA, and the list goes on. So at that point, I realized that today's time, the margin of error as a developer that we have is so limited that if one bad move we make or one wrong decision we make, it can really derail the growth of the entire organization. Number one. Number two, what also I felt is with these apps available, which give us the kind of dynamics to understand consumer preference or consumer behavior or consumer demand, as a developer, it helps us even to locate good locations, where which location we should enter or which locations are a part of oversupply. Like I'll give you a classic example. Today, Thane market in Mumbai city is a most supply-driven market, where today we have almost at every 1 kilometer, 4 or 5 of the largest developers of Bombay doing development there. But the beauty of that market is all developers are selling very well. Everyone is able to move their cargo well. There is it defies gravity, where continuously influx of new people are coming in there, and the market doesn't stop to show any sign of oversupply, basically, or the demand is continuously growing. Similarly, we see some locations in Bombay where, for example, I'll take Ghatkopar. Similarly, there is oversupply of products there, but demand is low. Where today, every lane, if there is, I've seen in certain locations, if there are about 20 buyers in one vicinity, there are 20 projects available in that vicinity. So again, selling there is very difficult. So automatically the price goes down, etc. Now, to understand the dynamics of which location, what sells, doesn't sell, and how inventory stacking is happening, that's, I think, the most crucial decision for a developer before conceiving any project. That's
so Parth, the question I still ask is, and I agree with you totally about what you were saying, but the question still coming to the commercial mind is that when that is a known fact, why do builders go ahead and build when the 19 projects have come up? Why do they take up the 20th project knowing fully well that there is a market problem in terms of selling the market out there?
So I'll tell you what has happened is a lot of developers have felt the previous track record of performance is going to be the barometer of their future success. So they felt this location, this has been selling. Or maybe I'll say lack of awareness of what kind of suppliers may be coming in, because the process in Mumbai, right from identifying an opportunity to launching a project, is itself a 6 to 12 month process. And in 6 to 12 month process, if you're not well informed, there are so many other developments that are macro factor wise happening in the environment that by the time he launches, he realizes he's in a situation where there's an oversupply. So today's time, because of
the builder community is very well connected with each other. You know, you go to the registrar's office where the land records are taken and you know which one has bought which property. Everyone knows everyone's property and everyone knows what project is coming, including the kind of detailing that's going to happen in the project.
Correct.
It's a very, very common knowledge floating around. So yet, why does the 19th guy, the 20th guy want to invest in buying a property and building a project where the 19 others have found it very difficult to sell, and then say the market is getting into a greater and greater gap?
I think each one has their own strategy where feels a different sizing, different packaging, or maybe the track record in that micro market, what he's been doing. And he feels that same history will be repeated, or maybe he feels that he has the tolerance of financial closure to take the project to a certain level and maybe then sell. Because in Bombay, one thing you can't take away, when a project is completed, you will not even find any building having more than 4 apartments with lights switched off. That's the beauty of Bombay city.
That is because I'm told the builders keep the lights on.
No. That's definitely not the fact.
Would anyone want to add to this, what he has been saying?
See, I just have a very little thing on what, according to me, the reason why the 20th guy, knowing that there are 19 other guys, still picks up the 20th project is because that's a match made in heaven. The 20th guy doesn't have an option, boss. Right? He's been working there. Right? Ghatkopar, forget Ghatkopar. He doesn't have anyone knows him in Vidya Vihar. The only market that he knows and the only marketing people in the market that who know him are in Ghatkopar. So that's a match made in heaven. It's not by if he had a choice to do a project in Andheri, he might as well have gone to Andheri because money is fungible. Instead of paying $1 million in Ghatkopar, he would have given $1 million in Andheri as a deposit. But there is something beyond money in real estate, which is people to people contact and networking, even more so in a market like Bombay, where trust plays a far vital role beyond money, really.
You know, Dr. Malia, I want to add one thing here. The real estate industry is perhaps one of the last bastions where data-led decision-making did not take place in the earlier generation. And yet they succeeded, but that's phenomenal. And that is the instinct that the earlier generation brought to the table. Now, Mumbai cannot be the base for the country because Mumbai has one problem. Land is very, very finite, which is why some of the best known names in real estate in Mumbai have moved outside. Now, today, I mean, you keep asking me for examples. Several of our startups have actually brought in data-led decision-making for real estate developers, be it in tenancy, be it in land acquisition. And today, many developers actually, and I know a few from Mumbai who said, boss, it doesn't make sense based on what props AMC has given me or props CRE metrics has given me to actually build residential here. I think I should use a mixed development. So data-led decision-making is now the younger generation are using it very, very sharply.
Good. So Avinash, a question for you is, how can we ensure that this PropTech space that we are talking about predominantly is a meaningful space and just not an empty theory that we are talking
about? I think this is kind of self-fulfilling, right? So I think PropTech startups and entrepreneurs will chase opportunities that they know are going to succeed, right? Because I think the fundamental basis on which they start is they identify a latent need, right? And only then will it actually be a successful idea or a successful startup. So my sense is that, you know, this is a market that will play out. Good ideas will succeed. There will be some which are not great, which will fall by the wayside, right? But I think there will be some major trends in the real estate industry which will drive the growth of startups, some led by the situation and circumstance. So for example, if you look at, you know, I think COVID changed the perception of what a home is, for example, right? Till COVID, our home was just, you know, just a place you came by in the evening to go to sleep, got up and you rushed back to the office. But COVID really changed that. It became a space where you live, it became a space you work, it became a space you play, and it had to be, it had to play have multiple dimensions to it. Now, as a response to this, you have multiple startups trying to work and figure out how to make the home more fungible, more adaptable, more flexible. Right? Similarly, John was talking about ESG and sustainability. Right? That's another big space. And if you look at it today, homes account for more than 20% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the world. So then there are a huge number of startups which have now started working towards solutions, especially in smart home technology, which doesn't work on convenience or comfort, but is actually looking to address energy efficiency. So, like I said, I think startups or the entire startup space and the PropTech space will go where there's a need, right? There will be some isolation where you have identified the need wrong, and those will fall by the wayside. But by and large, I think people are only going to work out where they feel that there is an opportunity.
All right, super. Sujay, question for you. If you were a professor who has to explain to someone as stupid as me what PropTech is all about, how would you, in simple words, explain what is PropTech?
A professor, since you have called me a professor, Dr. Adil, you have contradicted yourself because professor never gives a simple answer to a simple question.
And particularly for idiots like me to understand.
Yeah. No, but see, I would say that there are going to be 5 chapters, right? In the PropTech definition of 5 points, maybe. The first point is any process, automation, or a device that strives to improve incrementally existing processes, device that are doing job is what I call as version 1 of PropTechization, right? Second is, so the second bullet point of a PropTech definition is those systems, processes that are focused on improving or making sweat existing assets of organizations. Asset meaning it may be building materials, or human resources, for example. They are the biggest assets. I don't know how many startups are really focused on improving the productivity of each employee that works for an organization. That's also very, very critical part of an PropTech automation. Third is really what at True we are focused on, which is really disrupting the entire value chain. Not looking at 2%, but trying to automate the entire 98% of the building development space. So can we move from incremental change to Uberization of real estate? Can there be developers in the fraternity who do not own the land, but still become the largest developers in the country, right? So that is going to be the complete, and that really encompasses the entire ecosystem from visualization to, like Mr. Kuruvilla rightly mentioned, automation of the entire land acquisition process, integrating some of the critical parameters into decision making, to execution, just a simple thing like real-time reconciliation of constructions every day, right? We have been working on a very interesting problem within our tech team and our development sites is drawing a parallel between infra and real estate. Both industries use cement, labor, and same steel. But why is it that infra projects go 24/7 on execution, but real estate projects at best have 6 to 8 hours of window daily for execution, right? And just imagine if we are able to do 2 shifts, not even 3 shifts on the execution, say what are the time savings that we'll have on execution, cost savings on interest, and far higher customer delight, right? So really attacking the entire value chain to see whether we can automate not 1-2% aspect, but the entire 98% of the aspect. That's going to be the version 3, really, of the entire PropTech space.
Right. Now, I have a very meaningful question to ask you, Sujay. Did you by any ways bribed my secretary to know that I was going to ask you this question, because you really gave a very fantastic answer, as if you really knew this question was coming to you.
No.
It's a very beautifully narrated answer, giving the detail of what the problem. Now, you have never faced this kind of a situation, which I'm going to put you through. In most of the webinars, either there is a moderator like me who's asking questions, or that the audience is asking questions. I'm going to give each one of you a 1-minute opportunity to ask any one of the other panel members a question which will help you understand the space. So begin with, say, Arihant, and ask question to any one person on the panel, something that you want to know from them, which will help your learning.
Yeah, I think anyone can be open to answering this, but I just have one question. Is like the thing Dr. Malia just pointed out, right? That when there are 19 developers who are already developing in a certain area, and we being the 20th one still jump into that rubble again, is how can we kind of gather, or any of you have been adopting into a PropTech space to analyze and to gather non-traditional data, apart from what a normal broker or through our normal market research is the data that we get out of the numbers of units that are selling, or the number of units that are coming up in the future and the projects coming up. Are you using any special technique or technology to gather and garner non-traditional data to determine or to make a better judgment on what to build and what should be the specifications, what should be the dynamics of the projects that are coming up there? So if anyone could just guide me or enlighten me on that.
Yeah, and I will let them answer it, but I want to believe that if blockchain were to come in, this would become an easier process, but someone answer.
So Arihant, I sent the panelists a brochure. There are 3 companies that I can recommend. If you're in the commercial space, look at Props AMC. It will tell you what is the tenanted properties in a location, what is the anchor tenants, what is the rent they're paying, what is the duration of their tenancy, when is it going to expire. It can then help you take a decision as to whether that land parcel for commercial is worth it or not. There are both, Props AMC and CRE Metrics both do that. In fact, both these companies also will help you identify which are the pockets based on future developments. Where is the metro going? Where are train connections coming up? Where is petrol stations coming up? Where is the nearest airport coming up? They'll also tell you, where could it be possible for you to get a better return on your investment basically putting all your money in Ghatkopar. Many, many years back, I did my first PropTech startup in 2000. I met an amazing gentleman called Satish Magarpatta. He built Magarpatta city in the boondocks of Pune. Nobody ever thought that can be prime. And I remember HDFC actually funded him. And today that's a city by itself, which is booming. Stories like this abound. When Brigade went and bought land in Devnahalli many, many years back, people never thought orchards could do so well, or DLF went and did Gurgaon. So this data exists today on where you could perhaps get the best return for your buck based on data that you can, where to build, what to build, and when to build.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm getting a buzz that we have completed our 1 hour, and I need to bring in Sapna to ask questions from the audience. So Sapna, will you take over and tell if there are any specific questions?
Yes, we have very specific questions, in fact, from our audience. One question is for you, Dr. Malia, is, you've heard all the speakers from real estate. You have been part of other industries as well. What is your sense, about the real estate space? Are enough innovations happening? Are there, there's need to be more innovative, more technology oriented in real estate? What is your, take on this?
So my take as a consultant, and I thought when I agreed to do this moderation, is that I would be asking questions and not giving any answers. But now that you're forcing me to give an answer, and can you imagine a consultant giving a concrete answer ever? But okay, I'll try and give you an answer. It's like this, that I somehow see right off now that technology does not leave any kind of alternatives to people, because every industry has their own problems. So technologies which keep developing answers for some other sector somewhere down the line, some intelligent people find their own applications from that technology to say, these are the problems I am facing in my domain and space. Can I be using this technology to find my answers? And therefore, technology is going to, at one point of time, be uniformly available to all sectors to solve all their problems. It is only for a limited period of time that technologies are sector specific. After that, it starts giving values to all the sectors to solve all their problems. Unfortunately, currently, the real estate technology is unable to attract the top-edge talent. For its own problem, it is not able to pay the top-edge compensation. Also, the fact that the corporate players are still not as big as what the legacy entrepreneurial players are playing. So their desire and capacity to invest in technologies, their desire to pay human resources, the kind of market compensation and all is not attracting the best talent in the space. But at one point of time, when these realities will get answered by the market forces, I think reality is a real sector in terms of it is going to define lifestyles, it is going to define many things, and therefore it is bound to succeed, which is very, very critical and important.
Okay, so we are getting there. We are on the right path.
Of course, you are.
Yes, and we are getting there. Next question is for you, Mr. Kuruvilla, is that, there have been many prop tech companies. We have seen a lot of startups have come, many flopped, many succeeded. You have been working with a lot of these new companies. What are the limitations that you have seen?
So Sapna, because again, I've been across industries, the challenge is the same. And especially in prop tech, we see many brilliant technologists having a solution and then come looking for a problem to solve. For example, monetizability and delivering tangible outcomes to the industry is critical. And so we work with bright youngsters to actually tell them, listen, don't worry about, and the other mistake they make is they say that, oh, if you help me get funding and if you help me get customers, we are done. And that's far from the truth in every startup industry vertical that we've seen. So we actually work with them on, the first thing is the problem that you're solving. Is it something that the real estate industry is wanting solved, for which they're willing to pay money for? And we spent almost 6 weeks of the 18 weeks in what we call product stakeholder development, which gives very, very strong fundamentals. Of the, and again, while we've seen about 3,000 startups and we've only mentored 56, of the 56, 6 have failed. So it's not that we have a 100% track record. So obviously there are some of them who don't get that right. And that's the angle that we work on.
And Sapna, what John is saying is so real, because most consultants and most technology suppliers are solutions in search of a problem.
Correct.
Versus you actually need a problem and a solution to that problem, rather than a standard solution, which we will now try to apply to every problem.
That's right. So standard solutions do not work. Now taking, the viewpoints from our developers, if you are looking at a technology, if you are looking at a prop tech company, what are your, considerations or factors? Like John said, there has to be a viable problem for which a developer is ready to pay. Avinash, starting from you, what do you see when you are looking for at a prop tech or a tech solution?
I think that is fundamentally it, right? I think as developers, there are several problems that we face in day-to-day life. Some of which we have ready-made solutions today, some of which we don't. And for those, we go out and look for interesting solutions. So I think one of the panelists had mentioned earlier, and this is something to do with snagging, right? Now that is, for example, a genuine problem that we face. Snagging has always been a traditional activity, a paper and pencil kind of an activity. Right? By digitizing that activity and moving to an app, we have actually managed to one is reduce snagging time and actually managed to monitor this entire process much better. So as a developer, we know where our problems lie. We need to know where the solutions lie. And I think today what happens is we don't have a structured marketplace for technology and technology solutions. And I think if we develop an interesting marketplace for technology solutions where developers can actually go and have get access to interesting technologies to solve their problems, this will be a huge benefit to both the developers and the startups themselves.
That's right. So structured marketplace for tech solutions is what Avinash is saying. Sujay, what do you have to say on this? What developers are looking at when they are looking for a prop tech company? You're on mute.
See, I think very importantly, it is which is the technology that will be able to continuously solve the same problem in a better manner. Because there have been instances in the past where a problem has gotten solved, and then, you know, the problem itself also changes. So it's like a traffic jam, right? You build a flyover somewhere, and then once the flyover opens, the traffic jam gets removed from there, but the bottleneck shifts to some other place, right? So it's about the technology that also changes with time, with expectations, with changed expectations of all stakeholders who are adopting that technology, and make sure that it is solving the problem on a continuous manner. The problems are everywhere. I mean, it's very difficult to answer which specific area, because real estate as an industry, everything you pick, it's, you know, once upon a time when I used to stay in Bangalore, early 2000, there was a saying that you throw a stone and it will hit an IT engineer, right? It's like that. This entire sector, this entire industry is full of problems. But, you know, as developers, you know, we don't only say that these are problems, but these are opportunities. So whichever, I mean, any area, any field, any module, any function you choose, there are no dearth of problems that can be solved by using PropTech.
That's right. So what Sujay is saying, the consistency in the solutions has to be there, and you know, the problems are there, and you know, we need to find the right solutions which are consistent, which build up and which scale up. Parth, what do you have to say, you know, in terms of technology by developers?
Like all our panelists have covered various facets of technology that has been available across the spectrum under real estate development. I would like to address a very specific issue. See, today, like what my other panelists said, whether there are snagging issues in a project or there is supervision issue in a project, I think developing a tech-based solution where all the agencies, whoever are involved in the process of construction, are able to hand in glove, like a relay race, manage a project where the policing from the developer, or you can check the checks and balances that we have to continuously live with. If that can be eliminated, where an app automatically, a solution basically automatically says what each agency is supposed to do, when they are supposed to complete, what other one's supposed to do. And that process, if it can get seamless, A, it will add to a better quality product. B, it will save a lot of wastages and costs that we incur aimlessly. 3, a lot of time will be saved. So in today's time, you have to acknowledge there is going to be a very basically limitation of skilled labor that's going to be available going forward. So going forward, keeping skilled and unskilled labor motivated or keeping them aligned with the organizational objectives to complete in a set time is going to be very difficult. If we can have a solution where your construction becomes as seamless, like for example, like sale or like a sales strategy, where suppose a design guy along with a tile contractor or a plumbing MEP contractor are all in sync of what sequencing of activity should be done in a manner where one things get completed in an automated or an industrial fashion rather than a man-made dependency fashion. Today, you visit a Toyota workshop, you'll see cleanliness in any car production channel. There is seamless logistics and infra. But you go to a real estate developer site, you walk across a site which is under construction. As a layman also, you'll not be able to understand what's happening where and who's doing what. So if a tech solution can bind all the people, whoever are working on a set project, and achieve a set goal of how they should complete, I think there's a lot of time, cost, and quality that we can improvise on.
Right. So the need that Parth is saying is the real-time collaboration between all the stakeholders, especially during the construction process and the labors, is what Parth is talking about. Arihant, what do you have to say? You know, what developers are looking at in the PropTech space?
See, I completely agree with all what the other panelists have said about whether the consistency in solving an issue and also a marketplace where we can actually gather information about what the other tech companies are doing. But for me, most importantly, what I also look at, first of all, what problem it's resolving, and also how easy it is to implement in my daily operations. Because it's very difficult to transform the way the company is working or the way the organization is working overnight. So when I actually look into a prop tech space, or while I look into a prop tech about resolving a solution, is I always see whether how convenient or how effective it is in implementing and making it as a plug and play model into my organization. I understand there would be certain changes that need to be made, but that would happen over time. But for me, it is very critical to understand how a prop tech solution would be easy to implement into the daily operation, and it forms into sync on how the transformation or the change is happening in the company.
That's it. So integration within the organizational system, execution, easy execution and implementation is very important for developers organization. Now, one last question, very interesting question that has come to us, that, other industries, when they are promoting their product, their marketing, or advertising their product, whether it is car, whether it is watches, or whether it is smartphones, they highlight the technology. But in real estate, when are we going to talk about technology in our promotions? We still talk about swimming pool and the facade and, the amenities. Will there be a time we'll be talking about, how strong the construction is, the technology used in it? Mr. Malia, do you see that happening in the near future?
See, I think it's going to happen the other way around, because is the customer value proposition fulfilled? What technology fulfills it should ideally not be the basis on which he's buying. What is important is, what is your customer looking out for? If he's familiar with those technologies, he will expect an output which would be able to deliver that for him. So customers should be focused on what are the value propositions he's looking out for the kind of money he's investing in. The technology used should actually be the secondary question for him.
Okay. So, John, what do you say? Is it for the industry to create that awareness that the customer should be, looking at the technology involved in the project, because it's a lifetime investment for him, or is it that has to come from the consumer?
So the consumer is very, very smart. David Ogilvy, many years back, said the consumer is not a moron, she's your wife. The consumer is very, very smart. So I'll give you, Dr. Malia, a case in Chennai, where in water-starved areas, Appaswamy Developers actually puts out an ad, full-page ad, and it says water management by VGOT. Okay, there is a builder in Bangalore which says, you can now get portable drinking water from your taps. So people are, and you have to understand, PropTech as a category is 6-7 years old worldwide. It's just coming of age. And while there is a holistic, and I agree with the panelists, it has to be integrated holistic, the customer will find what he wants from going to developers. So example, I know many developers in Chennai who are saying, customers are coming and saying, boss, who's doing your water management? So I think it's a jugalbandi between the developer and the startup to figure out how to change the value prop to create differentiation. I think many smart developers are doing that to create unique differentiation for themselves.
Okay, let's hear it from the developers themselves. Avinash, going first, our developers now...
One second, Sapna, I have a flight to catch, so I will have to move on. Will you please excuse me from
I think you have done your job well, Dr. Malia. You have brought the best from our speakers. So this is our closing question, but thank you so much for so wonderfully moderating this panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
So Avinash, coming back to you. So as a developer, are we going to see developers now focusing more on technology when they are advertising their product?
See, I think there is a tremendous focus on technology in the backend for every developer, right? In any stage of our construction. What we advertise is really dependent on two things. One is what the USP of the developer is, right? What we really stand for. And second is what the customer is looking for. Right? Now, when a customer buys a product like a car, for example, right, their technology becomes important to the customer. But when a customer is buying something like real estate, right, it's very possible that the amenities are something that they value more. The location is something that he puts more focus on, right? But there are also a set of developers today who put a lot of emphasis on their their construction technology. Right. I think one, very, very strong example is Shobha in this. If you look at any marketing office or sales office of Shobha today, right, he, spends undue amount of, real estate showing you what construction technology is going into the building. But that is because that is Shobha's USP. Similarly, if you go to a developer like Total Environment in Bangalore, if a lot of you are aware of him, like his USP is design. and in the space, and the bespoke nature of the space. So that is what is going to, his advertising or his marketing is going to focus on. So I think the answer to that question is really, like I said, it's twofold. One is if there is an inherent need to be resolved, right? Where there are a lot of projects, for example, in in rain-starved areas or water negligent areas, which the USP of the project itself is water and water conservation. There are projects which are in polluted areas, which are saying that we are giving you integrated pollution management systems in the projects, both in terms of the landscaping and in terms of the technology. Right? So the simple answer to that question is we will, developers will advertise what the consumer is looking for and what the USP of the developer is.
I think you have expressed the sentiments of all our, developer speakers here that yes, it doesn't necessarily have to be technology, but the USP of the project or the region, what they want to focus as, depending upon, the reading of the consumer, what they are looking at. So I think we had a good discussion about how the technology is changing a lot. As all our speakers have said, a lot needs to be done. A lot of mindsets need to be changed. And as our speakers, the developers friends have said that technology has to be implementable. It has to get integrated within the systems, within the people management. So we are on the right track. As Dr. Malia said, we are on the right track. Our speakers have said that, yes, we are there, we are getting there. So thank you so much for all our speakers to be here with us and discussing some very important topics about technology and real estate. I think the youth of the sector is changing. Parth, Mehta, Sujay, and Arihant, the young face, Avinash here, and I'm sure John, who's working with a lot of young technopreneurs. So the future is bright. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sapna.